Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're examining a very current question for homeowners and investors in Toronto. Should you sell your property in this upcoming fall market? This year's fall market, typically kickstarting after Labor Day weekend, may present unique challenges or opportunities for sellers. As buyers return to the market with a renewed determination, conditions can often turn favorable for those looking to sell. But with interest rates rising and a shift in market confidence, will that be the case this year? We'll dive into the current market trends and what you, as a homeowner, can expect from the fall market in 2023. We'll discuss the types of properties likely to be in demand, potential marketing strategies, and what conditions you may encounter in buyers' offers. We'll also explore the demographics of the buyers this fall, delve into the idea of making improvements to your property, and consider contingency strategies if your property doesn't sell within the anticipated timeline. So, join us as we provide comprehensive insights into Toronto's fall market, helping you navigate the opportunities and challenges that might come your way. It's the last week of July 2023. We are Fox Marin Associates, Toronto's most innovative and active brokerage in central and downtown Toronto. We aren't here to regurgitate boring stats. You can find those anywhere. We're here to share what we see going on in the Toronto real estate market in real time on a weekly basis so that you can be in the know and make informed decisions. If you're interested in getting an up-to-the-moment opinion on what's happening in Toronto real estate right now and learning about what's going down, boots on the ground, before it becomes a stat, then you're in the right place. My name is Ian Busher, and I'm a broker with the FM team. Keep her number handy. This is Corey Marin, in-house hype girl and resident expert listing broker. And a good man to know, Mr. Ralph Fox, our analytical, investor-driven macro picture watcher. We do this every week, so hit that subscribe button and join us for the latest episode every 7 days. Okay, are you ready to join us as we provide you with our personal insights into Toronto's fall market, helping you navigate the opportunities and challenges that might come your way? I hope you are. Corey, I'm going to throw over to you. Why don't you get us started?
Okay, I love it. Well, this is certainly a topic that we've been having conversations with all day, every day for the last 4 to 6 weeks. So I think there's going to be a lot of value here for our viewership today. So I'm looking forward to diving right in. Let's get down and dirty about the fall market 2023 in Toronto, boys.
Okay.
I'm going to kick you guys off with some questions. We'll do roundtable style answers. I will kick off the first question with Mr. Ralph Fox. When is the fall real estate market typically in Toronto? Can you just explain what that means at a very high level without going on and on for more than 60 seconds?
Residential real estate tends to be very seasonal, and it's very much weather and holiday related. So there are two prime times generally when the market heats up in terms of activity. You have the spring market and the fall market. Now we're talking about the fall market today. So the fall market typically starts the day after Labor Day and runs probably through to November and mid to end of November.
Okay, good. Under 60 seconds. I'm so impressed.
Amazing.
It's also known as the second spring market, jokingly, right?
Yeah, that's true. And I like the fact that Ian and I usually, Ralph, when you answer questions, we sit back, we have a coffee, we wait for you to finish your diatribe, smoke a joint, then we come back to the conversation. That was the quickest response. I'm like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready.
We're not ready.
Oh,
We're not ready.
Put me on a clock. I'll accomplish anything.
Okay, so for the both of you, why do sellers typically wait until the fall market to sell in Toronto? What's so great about the fall market, Ian?
What happens in the summer months, going back to Ralph's point about seasonality, is that people really kind of drift and stop paying attention to real estate for a little while. So if they were in the spring market and they didn't successfully purchase something, buyers might decide to take a little time off, go into the back seat and enjoy their vacation, enjoy their kids being out of school, enjoy the nice weather, and just say, I'm going to pick this up again later. And oftentimes they will come back in that first week of September after Labor Day with a vengeance, ready to go. And if you put your listing out in the summer months, you're going to typically find that that people are just not around and not paying attention, including even agents. Agents tend to disappear for the month of August as well because they know about the seasonality and that it's likely not much is going to be happening in August.
I totally agree with that. I also think there's something just to be said about that back to school kind of feeling in the fall. Toronto and properties look amazing in September and October when the leaves are changing, the weather cools off a little bit, there's a bit more spring in the step. There's like a general feeling of optimism, which just like is a
Enthusiasm.
natural part of,
Yeah.
enthusiasm. There
Let's
tends
get
to
some
be
stuff done.
like a feeling of renewal just automatically happens in September. So I think buyers and sellers have been really trained to think like these are the hot times of the market and this is the only time I should be selling and really the only time I should be looking for a property too. Ralph, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I'd say the last 2 weeks of August, in my experience or tenure in the wonderful world of Toronto residential real estate, the last 2 weeks of August are generally even slower than Christmas. I think people really tune out and let the humidity sink in, as is happening today. And so I think it's a really slow time, and it is not a strategically intelligent time to want to list your property or introduce your property to the market.
Got it. Now, are there properties that do better in the fall? Like, do you have to think about what asset class you're in? Like, does it matter if you are in a house versus a condo townhouse? Do you think that should play into the type of property that should wait till the fall?
I think the fall overall is going to be a much stronger time to go to market rather than August, irrespective of any asset class. But then when you start to talk about family homes or kids moving into schools, or the start of school or summer camps or anything that involves family, it just only reinforces the importance of not going to market in August and the importance of thinking about September or October as a list date. And then with condos as well, it's just a slower all around time, those last couple of weeks of August, especially.
And again, I don't mean to keep going back into the weather, but properties look better when they're lush and green and the foliage is changing in September, October, November than it does in the dead of summer here when it's hot and humid. And properties feel cooler to walk through. You go up into a 3-story freehold property on the loft section, and oftentimes, despite them having central air, it is stuffy and it's hot up there. And so it is just such a better atmosphere to be walking through properties, regardless of the asset class, when you can experience it from an atmospheric lens and from a weather standpoint and from landscaping and how things will look in photos and video in those fall months. And again, I'm very, very biased when it comes to the fall because it is my favorite time of year, generally speaking. And I was probably the only person in the world that's excited to go back to school every year. I still feel that kickstart in my soul after Labor Day for that reason. So I think all of that plays into it so much. Anything else you guys want to add about what the historical benefit of selling the fall versus the summer been? Anything else you want to add?
I mean, we talk about it being the second spring market. I think going back to Ralph earlier saying, give me a timeline. Basically, the end of the year, the holiday season for a lot of people is almost like the beginning of the summer break, where they're like, okay, we missed it in the spring, we're going to do it, but we actually want to get moved, especially if it's a family with kids, and be in there and be comfortable before that season happens. So if you reverse engineer this from a 30, 60, 90-day closing, I'm buying in the middle of September, moving in the middle of November, I can still have my holiday lights up. I can, celebrate whatever type of holiday I celebrate in the new property. So I think that's what pushes that September, early October rally as well.
As does winter.
Yeah, true enough. Going back to the weather part, come the time change in November after 4:30, it's pointless showing anything because it's in the dark, especially freehold, which you really want to get a look at the outside of.
You know what's so funny, Ian, is every time we talk about time shifts, I always think about you and the darkness in November because every year we talk about it. And you're the first person I think about.
Yes, that's Ian's moniker.
I don't know. I think you really hate it.
You do.
I do. I really do.
You do.
Yeah, I do.
I'm like, every time we talk about I'm like, Ian's going to hate this. It's going to be dark at 4:30. And I think of you first, even more than myself.
I don't like surprises. I'm always looking at the long term and I'm like, okay, so we're going to have, I know you guys depend on me for traffic reports and road closures too. So and that's my other thing, right? It's like it's Thursday, but don't forget that they're going to close the X highway this weekend. And
Yes.
the weather's going to be doing this. And we have the time change on Saturday.
And Taste of Italy is on.
Exactly. Yeah.
And birthdays, you're good at that too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
And apparently you've never seen a license plate you've forgotten.
No, that's a bit of a hyperbole, but I
Close.
do have a knack for this is the person, this is their car, their license plate is something like this, because you can't see through windshields anymore. And it's like, I'm constantly looking for people I know in cars.
So interesting.
Yeah, it's weird. I know. It might be a little bit on some kind of spectrum.
Yeah.
A little bit
that's
Rain
what I
Man.
was thinking.
The good kind.
And I just wanted to add in too, just about the fall market and timing. So I know sellers get super excited about listing in the fall. It's such a big trendy thing to do. I don't necessarily think it's in the seller's best interest to be the first week right after Labor Day come to market kind of thing, because this is where everybody is waiting to go to market. So the last thing you want to be is like one of 100 new listings in your area at the same time, or one of 7 listings in your condo building coming out at the same time. So between us here at Fox Marin and our audience that may be listening, we often recommend, take advantage of some of the benefits of selling in the fall. For sure, we totally get it. But let's just sort of wait and see, and let's just move through some of this inventory first. Let's set some new records. Let's see some new prices. Let's see what's working and not working. Have a little bit of a litmus test first. And then hit the market the 3rd week, the 4th week. Nothing crazy is going to happen. Well, we say that, but we don't know this year. And that's what this podcast is about today. But for anyone who's considering selling the fall, whether it's this year or past years or in the future, you don't need to be the first person out right after Labor Day, because you're going to be coming out with everybody and their brother at the same time. And you don't want to be sharing open house time, offer date times, all those things with everybody else that you're competing against. And you want to see some new record numbers happening first so you can leverage those for yourself. So want to add that in there. So Ralph, talk to me. How is the current market trending today? Would you consider this to be a seller's market right now? Would you consider this to be a buyer's market? Somewhere in between. I know we've had these interest rate increases. We're expecting another announcement from the BOC coming out September 6th, up or down. We're not sure. What is your forecast for the fall of 2023?
So by definition, we are still very much in a seller's market. If you look at key indicators like days on the market, meaning how long it takes a property to sell, or months of inventory, all of the data that came out from June, so it's a bit of a lagging indicator, indicates we are very much clearly in the seller's market. And the reason why I say lagging indicator is because things in the Toronto real estate market, especially in this post-COVID world, can shift rather quickly. And sentiment is starting to shift because now we've had 2 rate increases by the Bank of Canada, and there is some uncertainty now starting to hit the market with regards to the conversation of inflation and interest rates. So with that uncertainty, we're starting to see a slowdown, which appears to be, anecdotally speaking, in excess of the typical market slowdown that we see normally over the summer. Now, this is still very early days, but the surprise announcement in June, followed by the follow-up announcement in July, has given a lot of people to take pause to the narrative that was currently in the market in April, May, where it was clearly a seller's market. So we're seeing a lot of uncertainty now and a lot of shifting narratives, and a lot of people are waiting to actually see what happens in early September with the Bank of Canada's announcement, and they're waiting to see how the market in turn will respond to that. So we're in this paradigm where things aren't 100% clear on the short term. I think the long-term picture is entirely different. And I think everybody sitting here in this conversation will agree long-term, we see prices going up significantly in the next 3 to 5 years. Going back to your question, Corey, which is what's going to happen in the fall, is, and we were on a call just recently today where we were saying to a potential client of ours is that if you look at what every single economist would have predicted a year ago, vis-a-vis the economy, the stock market, and the Toronto real estate market, I don't think anybody would have gotten it right. And so we're in a shifting situation that is very unpredictable. And I think the question or the key thing to focus on is the level of certainty versus uncertainty. And so if you look at what happened last year, from last June to the end of December, there was a tremendous amount of uncertainty as there was a lot of increases by the Bank of Canada going on. And with that uncertainty, you had a lot of buyers sitting on the sidelines because they weren't sure as to what course of action to take because things were changing on the ground so quickly. Probably in hindsight, it looks like the bottom of the market would have been reached at the height of that uncertainty, which was in December 2022. January 2023, the Bank of Canada came out and said, we're pausing. And as soon as we had that certainty brought back into the market, you saw a lot of buyers come back into the market, outpacing supply. And then we saw a big run up in prices for the first 6 months of the year. Now we're back to an uncertain situation. And so I can definitely see a slowdown somewhat mimicking what happened last year as the next few months progress. So a lot will be dependent upon what the Bank of Canada does in September. We've seen inflation come down and continue to come down. It went from 3.7%. Now we're at 2.8%. Without the increased cost of housing, we're at 2%, which is in the Bank of Canada's mandate. Bank of CIBC, Royal Bank are projecting no more rate increases. We have other banks on the other side saying that there could be one more left in September. And so a lot of the perception of how the market will react will be based on the data that comes out in August and then the following decision made by the Bank of Canada. But in summation, the answer to the question which you asked is we don't think that there's going to be a market crash by any stretch of the imagination, regardless if there's another raise. We've seen 400 basis points and prices have only gone up. But there could be more uncertainty and we could hit a bit of a market dip in the next preceding months based on the bank's actions.
Okay, so a question here, just to make sure that I'm clear and our viewers are clear. When you say people are waiting to see what's going to happen, are you referencing, oh, hi, Draper, our puppy came into play. Are you referencing buyers are waiting to see, or are sellers waiting to see what happens before they list? Or is this a combination of both? And if it is a combination of both, how does that affect one or the other?
Well, conclusively, I think dogs are waiting to see as well. So I think it's a very wide net. But I do think that you have a lot of buyers, a lot of sellers, a lot of potential buyers and potential sellers and realtors all just watching what the temperature will be like based on a lot of the considerations coming out of the Bank of Canada vis-a-vis potential rates and what type of tone they're taking and what the data is to support or negate what they're doing.
Okay. Because I think from our lens, and Ian, I'm sure you'll agree, at Fox Marin, we've had more conversations with sellers about potentially listing in the fall than we ever have historically in the history of Fox Marin and in our careers. People feeling perhaps a little bit nervous, people responding to their variable rates, investors that have tenanted properties are like, do I really want to be carrying a second or third property right now? Is this time to dispose it? So this conversation we've been having about let's wait and see, I feel personally, and I'd love to hear your opinions, has been skewed more from the selling perspective. And I can't think of buyers right now that have been like, I'm going to pull back and wait until I see how things unfold. I think it's actually been sellers who've been a little bit jumpier trying to move on something for the fall. Ian, do you agree with that?
It's a tough one. I've got a couple of buyers who, with the interest rate increases, have basically decided to just wait and see, which I don't think is a great decision necessarily. but it is kind of how they feel, and I have to respect that. Sellers, just to throw something else out in there, I mean, you mentioned the investors who are thinking about dumping an investment property are also watching the rental market, which is incredibly strong, and kind of doing this do I, don't I dance. And I think that's adding confusion to that particular section of the market. So I think every seller has to ask themselves, what is my reason for selling, and what is my level of desperation? Is there any at all? And buyers have to ask themselves, what is my tolerance for risk? So sure, you know, there might be another interest rate hike. There might be a couple over the next few months to everybody has their own prediction on it. But I think there's terrific opportunity for buyers. So I think if they can, and if they have the tolerance for risk, as I mentioned, they should. And sellers really have to ask themselves what their motivating factors are. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Ralph, do you have a different additional take on that?
No, I just think right now, if you have an asset, you're going to question what the best allocation of your capital is at a time where you have higher than average inflation and higher than average interest rates. And so I think that is why we're having these conversations. And it's being wrapped up with a lot of short-term fear, which the media likes to whip up as soon as they have some type of a soundbite in order to do that. And so I think that's why we're having more conversations on the sales side. I think the people who are buying less investment side because the numbers just don't make sense the way they used to. I think the people who are buying right now are very clear on why they're buying because it's some type of a life decision or lifestyle acquisition that negates some of the concerns over financial uncertainty or cash flow. And so I think those type of buyers, there's less of them out there, but the ones that are out there are very clear on what their mandate is and why they're looking. And so I think that's why on the buy side, we're having far less conversations. And that's why I think we're so heavily skewed right now to the seller side.
The seller side. I'd agree with that. Now, if you do decide after having these conversations with us or your real estate team or broker that you do decide that you want to list your property, whether it's your own principal residence or it's an investment property, what should a seller expect for this fall versus former falls? Are they going to have multiple offers? Are they going to get record-breaking prices? Are they going to get fair prices? Are they going to be sitting on the market for a while? Like what? And just to add to that, not to ask so many questions in a row, does it matter what your asset is? Is this like a low rise, a condo townhouse, and price point related? Ralph, why don't you kickstart that? And I'm sure we all have thoughts on this.
Based on what we're starting to see and based on what we know starts to happen in a shifting market, it becomes a grind.
Yeah.
And there's nothing sexy or fun about it, especially if you're an agent. And typically what you will start to see is different expectations between what a buyer has and what a seller has. And a seller is looking at past sales and looking at, with guidance from their agent, an understanding of value. And as we already talked about, we are still very much, even though the market is shifting and slowing, we are still very much in a seller's market. But there's a lot of buyers who don't understand that, and they are working on ridiculous articles being published in BlogTO or whatever as their source of information, or their Uber driver or their hair colorist. It's that discrepancy between the two and us being in the middle trying to facilitate, where based on what we're starting to see now and based on past experience, I think that will definitely come into play in September. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about conditions and properties that you'd not normally see. Inspection conditions on condos are starting to pop up for some reason, even though there's no reason for them. Buyers having ridiculous demands of things being fixed or put in place that they wouldn't normally when the way Toronto market operates. And so we're definitely in a situation where a lot of creativity, problem solving, proactiveness is all really going to be the key differentiator on the sales side to a successful outcome and a not successful outcome. And I can say, as agents who believe that they add a lot of value, these are situations where, yes, we're probably working harder than ever, but we have an ability to facilitate clients' needs in a way that that general population, agent population will struggle with because they've only worked in an up market and have never really focused on infrastructure or experience or work ethic or hustle in order to get the job done. And that's really what it's going to take from this point, especially going forward over the next few months.
So totally agree with everything you said. And I think if the seller, and Ian, please jump in, feels that they can wrap their heads around reasonable expectations and that they'll get a decent price for their condo or their low-rise home, that it might take a little bit longer to sell, that it won't be all bells and whistles and a very sexy experience, and that they may have to deal with buyer demands, such as the conditions that Ralph just mentioned, then I think if you are reasonable and conservative about your expectations and it makes sense for you to diversify your portfolio, move the capital from this property to something else, or make a lifestyle move, then I don't think there should be any hesitancy about listing. Certainly, if you have a bit of a wait and see mentality and go to market maybe end of September or into October, which is still an amazing time to list, then that all makes rational sense to me. I think if you're looking for top dollar, record smashing sales, 70 showings in a week, 20 offers, 100 people at your open house over the public open house weekend, then I think that that's irrational behavior. And I don't think any agent promising to deliver on that will be able to fulfill that expectation. So I think it's really going to come down to a temperament of good agents being very reasonable about pricing and time on market and setting the seller's expectation from the get-go. And if you're working with a listing agent that's over-promising and under-delivering, then you're going to be on the market for a long time.
The other thing I'd just like to add is that if you're considering selling and the driving reasons are because you think the market is going to crash, I'm here to tell you right now, don't do it. And the reason why I say this is, if you look back to COVID, I don't know if anyone remembers the talk of the mortgage deferral cliff, where all these mortgages got deferred, and then everybody thought there would be 10,000 listings in Toronto the next day. That never happened. A lot of people thought, with the debt that we have in the system, 400 basis points would surely cause a complete collapse. That never happened. And banks are definitely working with homeowners and landlords that are in duress, and they're stretching out amortizations and delinquencies are at an all-time low because they don't want to be sellers of last resort for real estate. They will work with homeowners. So nobody's really getting forced out onto the street. And so because of that, you might have extra landlords, maybe more than usual, looking to sell tenanted properties if they can get the right price. But if they can't, they'll keep collecting their rents. But you're just not going to see this blow off the top. And it's the one thing that I really said from the beginning of all of this is that the last thing anybody wants to do is sell their Toronto real estate, because they know how hard they had to work to acquire it. They know the utilitarian value of it. And they know that in a year from now, there'll be another 500,000 people living in Ontario, and we're only going to build maybe 60,000 more new homes. So if you zoom out and you get rid of the fear and you think long term and you look at the history, you'll realize that there is no impending fear of this massive collapse. Could prices go down 5, 7, 10%? Maybe, but they could equally go back up as quickly as we've seen next year. And inflation is already where the Bank of Canada mandate is. And it's only a matter of time, I don't know when, for rates to come back down and start to normalize, probably, hopefully, in that 3 to 4% range. And when that happens, with the amount of all-time low in housing starts and development and all the immigration and all the demand from millennials, prices are going to shoot up really quickly. I can't tell you when that's going to be. So don't get caught up in the fear. Zoom out and think long term. There is no impending collapse. Do whatever you have to do with your bank or whatever you have to do in your personal situation to continue to position yourselves to weigh out this storm. This storm will pass. And when you get to the other side of it, you will be very happy. And it's one of the things I said in one of those little shorts that we did earlier in the week. And I said this, and it is the truth. Nobody has sold real estate in Toronto in the last 25 years and not regretted it.
Totally.
Don't let that be you.
Totally.
And that's my diatribe in under 10 minutes.
There's always a diatribe. We expect it. We look forward to it. Ian and I are like ready.
Yeah.
So do you think that there are going to be properties that are hotter than not this upcoming fall? Is there going to be a specific asset class, Ian, that you think will outperform another? Is it price point related? Is it location related? Talk to me a little bit about that.
I think it's going to be type. I certainly think that we are woefully undersupplied on freehold properties, and a dynamite freehold property coming to market this fall should potentially do very well just based on the backed up demand. I think the condo market is still very strong, but I think it will be behind the freehold pricing in terms of sort of seeing growth there.
Definitely. I totally agree with that. I think we'll definitely see a softening in the outlying areas. So it sort of works from the outside in. So like your 705s and your 905s, especially in the condo segment first, those will soften as we get closer to the central and downtown core. I think price point related, like I think if you're under $1 million, I think you're pretty protected. I think some of the luxury neighborhoods and price points might feel a bit of a pullback on your 4 million, 5 million plus properties. I think there might be a pullback. I think they'll still move. I just don't think you're going to see those astronomical prices for them. And Ralph and I were talking about this week, and I think it's a really good point. Is this really a time that we're going to see developers and builders buying these big monstrosities on big lots to be renovating and doing, a new construction, a new build to sell and flip in 2 or 3 years' time, with construction costs being what they are, with the challenges of getting trades and materials, the cost to acquire, and then the cost to sell. Does the math really make sense? So I think some of those properties that would be kind of considered to be the fixer-upper or a development play may be a bit challenging. And I think pre-construction, I don't know. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around that blowing up this fall, with price per square foot for some new construction being $1,400, $1,500, $1,600 per square foot. This is an amazing time, buyers out there. If you're like, I want to get my hands on some property, I think residential resale on the condo side is going to continue to float around that $1,000 per square foot mark. Maybe a little bit under in some neighborhoods and a bit over, obviously, in others. But that seems like a steal to me when you're comparing it to some of the new build opportunities. Ralph, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think the properties that are going to do well are the exceptional properties, the one-of-a-kind properties that are like move-in ready, that have that wow factor. The ones that are like the unique floor plans and the unique buildings, or the ones that are just the houses that are just renovated and have spectacular light and location on a street, and like all of those type of properties in demand, I think will continue to do well. I think the more generic you go, or the further outside the city you go in any asset class, the slower it will get. And that just comes down to scarcity and what is going to get people off their couches and in to see a property. And it's going to be the atypical properties, the standouts, that I think will continue to outperform.
Totally agree. All right. I have another question for you both. In a market that could be lukewarm, I think that's a good way to describe it. A lukewarm fall, we're not really sure which direction it's going to go, if it's going to be hot or not. Does it make sense for sellers prepping their property for sale in the month of August to be putting money into their properties before they list? Or are they better off being a little bit more conservative than normal and maybe pulling back on some of those value adds on the cosmetic side before they go to market? What do you both think about that?
I'll go first because I can be really quick. Corey, I think you answered your own question. I think it always makes sense to clean, polish, do the small repairs, but I think big money is not well spent at this point.
Yeah, we have a test. If you're spending $1, are you theoretically getting a $3 or more return? And that's really going to be the test in terms of, do you replace the black backsplash, or, deal with the grout in your shower, or fix your flooring, or whatever it is. But I think it makes a tremendous amount of sense, especially if you're not away on vacation or your kids are away at camp and you've got some downtime in the house. I think getting your house ready would be super smart, because like what Corey was saying, nobody really knows what the fall market is going to be. I think anybody who bets against the Toronto real estate market is going to lose. And I think if you can put yourself in position to go to market quickly and have your house at its highest and best, and position yourself to do it during the downtime, the dog days of summer, while you can get a contractor on the phone, I say do it.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I think being really responsive to the market this fall is going to be the key thing to be planning for. So as soon as there's a window of opportunity and the spidey senses are telling you that it's time for showtime, you want your property to be decluttered, clean, painted, and ready to rumble. And as we've said so many times on this podcast, I don't think one has gone by without talking about it, but you're working with an agent that's going to make sure that your property is showcased at its highest and best, including staging, styling, photography, video, and all those marketing assets, because that is where you're really going to get that payoff, especially when you're trying to net every dollar out of your sale in a market that might not have the temperament for, record smashing numbers. So squeeze out every dollar you can by maximizing what the property could look like at its best potential. Again, agreeing with Ian, like you don't need to redo your bathroom or put in a new kitchen. And nor would we ever recommend that even in a FOMO market either. But I think it's something that sellers really get on that in August. Use your time wisely, get into that basement and start decluttering it now so that you can make a strategic move in the fall when the time is right for you. And then my final question before we wrap up with our roundtable today is, do you think that sellers are going to have to take a different strategy when they list this fall, in that it's very commonplace in Toronto to see sellers list for lower than market value and have an offer date, market for a week and then hope to elicit multiple offers via a blind auction type scenario, versus listing at market value, negotiating with parties one-on-one. Is there going to be one strategy between those two that you think may or may not be better, or do you think it's going to be a case-by-case basis?
Well, I'll interject and just add a little context here, because typically in Toronto, you normally buy first and then you sell, because buying is the hard part where selling is an assurity. When you're in a market shift, you never want to be in a position where you buy in one market being a higher market and sell in a slower market. And we saw a lot of people get hurt with that in 2022. And so I think it's a case-by-case situation, but in some instances, if you have a property that for a whole bunch of reasons is not a slam dunk, especially in a shifting market, you may want to first off consider selling first. So that would be the first consideration. And then I think the second thing to do is really keep in mind you should be looking at all options. And if you're watching what's happening around you, you should look at like, where are the best sales happening and how are they getting there? Are they doing offers anytime? Are they doing offers anytime with the 24-hour irrevocable? Are they holding off on offers? When there are good sales, what strategy are they using? And would those strategies apply to you if you mimic those same strategies? And so I think, again, in a shifting market, you really need to be aware of what is working and not working and how the market is responding to it in real time. And I think once you have that greater awareness, it keeps you more agile to make a quick decision to benefit yourself in terms of how you approach going to the market.
That's an excellent answer.
Thank you.
Well, we want to wrap things up for our viewers today. So I have a quick round table for you both. Let's all try to answer this question, myself included. I have 3 questions. Let's all try to answer each question in 1 sentence or less. Ralph, you've got to be the one that gets the warning here.
Advanced warning.
Advanced warning. Okay. Ian, what's the worst thing that could happen this fall market?
Sellers panicking and a listing flood. And I'm saying that's the worst thing that could happen. And I'm saying it's probably very unlikely, but it's among the 3 worst things that could happen.
Okay. Ralph.
The Leafs trade Austin Matthews.
No,
I hadn't thought of that. Yeah. Can I take my answer back?
I think the Bank of Canada doing something really stupid.
Yeah. That would be next on my list.
I do think they're capable of it because they've been doing a lot of stupid things up to this point in time. There's my rant.
I think basically I could take mine back and include it with Ralph's, but basically everything that is about the worst thing that could happen this fall involves panic by somebody. Yes. Panic by a seller, panic by the Bank of Canada, panic because of some sort of financial problem in the US. It's all related to panic. Don't freak out is basically.
Exactly.
Yeah, like I would say that there are so many external things going on in the world. I think President Trump just got his 3rd indictment. So there are so many things every day happening that something could happen, which could cause, as Ian was saying, a rash panic. And we always just remind our clients, zoom out, look at the history, look at the fundamentals, think big picture, and don't panic. And make the long-term rational decision that will set you and your family up for the future.
Okay, and my answer to the question is...
What was the question again?
I know. I know.
What's the worst thing that could happen this fall?
The worst thing that could happen, you sell your property and you will regret it and kick yourself in 20 years.
Yes.
It's another form of panic, right?
Another form of panic.
That is the right answer.
I like when I hear that. That's a rare thing for you to say to me, Ralph. We have it all recorded too. Let's just make
take a moment.
A short that we just put on replay.
Let's do it.
And you know what's so good about this too is that when we have these recordings, it will be like a very good way for me to like say something and then Ralph will repeat exactly what I just said afterwards. And then people will be like, Ralph, that was such a good idea. And I'll be like, I feel like I just said that. And then I have a recording so I can play it back and prove it. It's awesome.
We're still waiting for that to happen.
Oh, it happens every day. Trust me.
All right.
Okay. So last part of the round table. What is the best thing that could happen in the fall market 2023? Ralph.
Inflation clearly drops below 2% and the bank readjusts their rates in line with reality. And there is, more importantly, just stability. I mean, you cannot drive an economy like it's a Red Bull trick plane. And that's what's happening right now. And it doesn't matter whether it's 5% or 4% or 3% or 4.5%. Just give everybody a level playing field and some stability and certainty and let the market take care of itself. And so I think the best case scenario would be just to get some stability and have people be able to make the best decisions for themselves, not out of fear, but out of optimism and best case scenarios.
Okay, great answer. Ian?
I would have said the exact same thing. Basically, the best thing that could happen this fall is no more interest rate hikes, maintaining a status quo or better. And I think like the last time they stopped that will improve overall confidence.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I would really like to be having conversations with sellers and buyers where I can really guide them and coach them and have a little bit of predictability in the proposals that we pull together for people versus saying like, this is what I'd like to see for you, but I really don't know what's going to happen. And we've had that conversation so much over the last 6 to 8 weeks. I'd like to be able to really give people some really good consultation and coaching around their real estate decisions. And I'd really, really like the cost of raspberries to come down per pint.
Oh, that'd be incredible.
Like, I'm just like,
I'm more on the blueberry side of things, but yes, it's time.
Come on. Like, I just can't.
Time.
I talk about the raspberry inflation rate all the time.
Yeah.
I base my entire economic understanding based on the cost of a pint of raspberries. And I'm like, $6.99 is just not flying for these moldy raspberries. All right. Well, this has been a great session. Is there anything else you want to add before we tie things up?
I would just say, if you're thinking of selling, don't do it out of fear. If you're thinking of selling, do it because it's a strategic long-term move where you can better allocate the capital. And if you can't, then don't sell because there is no impending market collapse and the boogeyman isn't going to come for us all. And the same reasons why you decided to buy your investment property or properties or home are the same reasons why you're going to be really happy with owning it 5 years from now.
I think that's great advice. Ian, would you like to take us home?
And there you have it. Today, we've covered a host of crucial considerations, explored market trends, and provided you with a comprehensive insight into Toronto's fall 2023 real estate market. We've looked at why sellers generally wait for the fall market, the type of properties likely to be in demand, and how shifting interest rates may impact the landscape. We've also discussed possible marketing strategies, the expectations for buyer offers, and the demographics of potential buyers this fall, whether it's worth improving your property and what to do if the property doesn't sell within the anticipated timeline. We've discussed potential best case and worst case scenarios, painting a comprehensive picture of what might lie ahead. Should you have any questions, ideas, thoughts, or suggestions, please feel free. Pop them into the comment section below. Corey, what do you like to remind our viewers to do?
Oh, I like to remind them to contact us because we are super nice and we're smart and we're funny.
And Ralph?
I thought you'd never ask. Please do us a favor. Smash that subscribe button down below. Hit that like button. Please be safe out there. I hope everyone has a really, really great summer. And we hope to hear from you.
Okay. Have a good one. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, viewers. Bye.
Bye.